But first, there are two Albanese government policies that are so plainly stupid and now so damaging. Damaging to everyone with a mortgage because they're paying for them. Everyone trying to buy or rent a home. But the government today just dug in deeper. Now, one of those crazy policies is, of course, immigration, bringing in nearly 1 million immigrants in just 2 years. Now, what kind of government does that when we clearly don't have enough homes for them all and are building many fewer than we need? The result, of course, you see it. House prices in our cities, insane. Young Australians now can't even afford to buy. Now, what's really weird is why our own government doesn't get this, when even some tourist in this country can. In this case, Tucker Carlson, the former Fox News star, now here on a lecture tour.
I asked someone I was traveling with, your housing prices, and not just on Sydney Harbour, but just like normal houses, far from Sydney Harbour, are so expensive. How does anybody live here? And this person said, well, increasingly they don't. They have to leave. A lot of homeless people all of a sudden. I said, that sounds like a crisis. Why is it happening? Well, one of the reasons it's happening is a principle we call supply and demand. And when there's a greater demand for something than there is a supply, the price rises. And that is purely a matter of population. If you have more people than you have houses, guess what happens to housing prices? They rise. This is the most obvious principle in nature and real estate.
Yes, it really is that simple. And I can understand Carlson's shock at our house prices. On my holidays in Europe, I looked at house prices in one country after another, probably half the cost of the most places I looked at what you pay here, half or less. Now, what are we doing to our young? You've got to ask, how are they going to feel truly settled if they can't even buy a house? How can they feel truly citizens of this country if they can't afford their own home? Now, this is a totally government-made disaster. And it's not just immigration that's to blame. There's also the government's, believe it or not, global warming policies. Because they're not just driving up your power bills. We now have economists warning that these climate policies are also helping to make interest rates, your mortgage prices, higher as well. Because they add to inflation, which means interest rates must go up, as the Financial Review reports. Again, it's so obvious, except to this government. As you know, this government insists on telling us what everyone now must know is a fraud. The more wind and solar power we get, it's going to be cheaper. It's the cheapest power there is. Instead, as you know, exactly the opposite has happened. Your power bills have soared. And the thing is, these power prices will keep going up. UBS, the financial services giant, predicts power prices will keep rising for at least another 5 years to 50% more than what they were last year. Now, the government never predicted this. It claimed it would cut your power bills by $275. Instead, we're told they're going to go up yet again by another 50%. And that, of course, adds to inflation, and that means higher interest rates to counter it. Everyone's going to pay. But as I say, the government today doubled down. It today unveiled its new Future Made in Australia plan. Now, from that deceitful name, you would think, this is all about just making stuff here, all sorts of stuff. Who'd be against that? Except, of course, that's wrong. It really is a nice label to hide the fact that it's throwing away $23 billion over 10 years on its green energy plan. That's all it is. The Treasurer was pretty clear about that.
A future made in Australia is all about secure jobs and more opportunities and a new generation of prosperity in an economy powered by cleaner and cheaper energy. It's all about broadening and deepening our industrial base and becoming a renewable energy superpower.
Now, if you were thinking, well, that's not too bad, is it? The Treasurer is saying today. Well, in fact, nothing, you've got to remember, nothing about this government's green energy plan so far has worked as it should. And there's good reason to think this latest scheme won't either. I mean, this plan is to spend those billions and billions to encourage private investors to spend even more billions on things like renewable hydrogen, a very expensive technology still not proven at scale. Big doubts it will work. Plus, it'll spend on green metals, low-carbon liquid fuels, etc., making things like solar panels, which China in fact already makes for far cheaper. Now, a lot of economists and former Productivity Commission bosses are warning this could actually be a huge waste of money. After all, here's a government led by a man who's never had a job in business, thinking it can pick the next big business winners.
But we're also setting Australia up for the future. And that's what the Future Made in Australia Act is all about. Engaging and investing.
When he says investing, what he actually means is spending. And chances are that all this extra spending and all that more expensive green power that's coming means inflation will continue to stay too high. And with it, your mortgage repayments. You see? Simple. But this government, with these green stars in its eyes, cannot see it.